What's up, guys? We're back once again to another r/malicious compliance. Don't want to waste any time today, so let's get right in the stories, and I'll see you in a bit. Want me to answer every call? Sure thing. Enjoy your wait. Background. Part of my job involves taking calls from the public to offer various types of support. This can range from tech support to helping people find services in our country that they need. My team is me and one other person. Between us, we have to cover 7:30 through 19:30, Monday through Friday, and weekends as well. Because of this and the fact that the company won't invest in calls waiting for us, we can only take one call at a time. Our voicemail quite clearly states that we're a small team, but if you leave your name and number, we aim to get back to you within 5 minutes. Normally, people are rather understanding of our situation and are happy to wait for us to call them back. But as the world is full of impatient a-holes, we often get voicemails just criticizing us. Now, this happened today, and I've been waiting to react to this for a long time, and finally got the opportunity to. Me equals me, a-hole caller equals AC. AC, voicemail. This is bloody ridiculous. I was told to call this number, but what's the effing point in telling people to call if there's nobody to answer the phone? AC calls again. Me. Hello, you're through to company name. Crackbar speaking. How can I help you? AC. Oh, so now you answer the phone. What's the point of having a number if you never bloody answer in? Me. Did you leave us the voicemail? I just listened to it, but unfortunately you didn't leave any contact details, so I was unable to return your call. Thank you for calling back. How can I help you? AC. You should answer every call that comes through. Me. Well, unfortunately there are only 2 people in my team, including myself, and there tends to be only one of us in at a time. So if I answered every call, I'd end up having to put people on hold, and that doesn't really seem fair. Regardless though, you're through at the moment, and I'm happy to help you however I can. AC. You can help me by doing your job and answering the phone when it rings. At this point, I'm like, screw you, lady. So, sod it. I'll comply. Me. Okay, sure. I'm sorry that I've annoyed you. I'll make sure to answer the phone whenever it rings. Now, how can I help you? AC starts to describe her problem. Phone rings. Me. Oh, I'm sorry. The phone is ringing. I'll have to place you on hold. AC. Wait. Hold. I then help the person calling, taking my sweet, sweet time. Like going above and beyond just to keep this other woman waiting. Plus, it's nice to help people. Take AC off hold. Me. Thank you for your patience. Now, you were saying? AC. How dare you put me on hold? Especially. Me. Oh, I'm sorry. The phone is ringing. I'll have to place you on hold. Hold. You can see where this goes. I think I managed to keep this going for about 15 to 20 minutes before she hung up. And I'm in for the next 10 hours. God, I hope she calls back. TLDR. Lady wants me to answer every single call that comes through, regardless of whether I'm already on the phone or not. I comply. Sure. I'll count every part for you. I work for an inventory company. We literally go to businesses, count their inventory, update their computer systems, and then my boss compiles a bunch of statistics about their inventory to discuss with management about how they're doing. Some of my boss's biggest business comes from buy-sells, or an inventory that's being done before the sale of a business, in order to calculate the value of the current inventory, and therefore how much the buyer has to pay the seller for it. This can be compiled because what counts as good piece of inventory changes depending on the agreement the 2 companies reach. We're usually brought in as a neutral third party. My boss has been doing this stuff for 40 years and has way too many stories of sellers trying to get him to inflate their inventory, or buyers trying to get him to devalue it. So a few years ago, a client, who will henceforth be known as buyer, contacts my boss doing an inventory for a business he wants to buy. My boss has worked for many years with buyer's father, who had recently retired, and passed down the business to buyer. My boss doesn't think very highly of buyer, but he's not going to turn away business just because he thinks someone is an entitled idiot. My boss informs buyer that he will need to see the sale agreement at least a week before the inventory so he can review it. He is not a lawyer, but has enough experience with these things that he can parse through the language on his own. And if there's something weird, the week gives him enough time to get an actual lawyer to look over the agreement, or to speak with the buyer or seller to go over things. Buyer agrees to send it as soon as the lawyers finish fleshing it out. He doesn't. For the next 3 months, my boss is all but begging buyer to send him the sale agreement. Buyer apparently has the attention span of a 3-year-old learning trigonometry, because he agrees every time, and then a thing came up and he forgot. He was even desperate enough to contact the seller to try to get the details, but the seller refused to even take the calls. The day before the inventory, my boss finally calls buyer and says that if he doesn't get the agreement before 10 p.m. that night, he was going to cancel the inventory. Buyer finally faxes the agreement over so my boss can get a handle on what exactly the buyer has agreed to buy from the seller. So by the time the date of the inventory arrives, my boss is starting the day severely annoyed because he has been up all night going over the sale agreement. Side note, because my boss is an effing wonderful human, he often meets a group of us so we can carpool to the jobs together. Which meant I had a front row seat to the horror that was my boss's welcome by the buyer the day of the inventory. Buyer: "Hey boss, thanks for coming out today. I really appreciate it." Boss: "Well, it's what you pay me for." "Hey, before we get started, I wanted to talk to you and the seller about the sale agreement. I just wanted to make sure everyone is on the same page before we get started." Buyer: "Oh, no need. We got it all figured out." Boss: "I'm sorry?" Buyer: "Well, the seller is really hurting financially, and he has to take care of his sick father and his family, so I'm just gonna buy the whole inventory." Boss: "You're just gonna buy everything?" Buyer: "Yeah, that should make this simpler for you, right? You can just do the inventory like normal." Boss: "Okay, you realize you don't need to do that, right? Your agreement states that you only have to pay him for inventory that is below a certain age and in good condition." Buyer: "It's not a big deal if there are a few bad pieces here and there. It'll be a lot faster if you guys just count everything." Boss: "I need to make sure you understand. Just from the casual look around I've had so far, I can tell you that a good portion of what I'm seeing is outdated, and in some cases completely destroyed. You won't be able to sell the..." Buyer: "Well, I've taken a look around too, and I think you're exaggerating. Besides, whatever I can't sell here, I can always post up on eBay. There's always somebody who wants this old stuff. So, I want you to count everything." Boss: "I understand that. And if you tell me to count everything, that's what we'll do. But I really think that..." Buyer: "Look, I'm gonna pay you the same. So what the hell do you care what I buy? You may know inventory, but you can't see the big picture here. I want everything counted and added into the inventory. It's not like you guys have to work any harder." Boss: "Okay, then we're gonna need to reword our contract. The current one specifies that we're doing the inventory according to the sale agreement you've reached. If you want us to count everything, then I just need..." Buyer: "I just said I wanted everything counted. I'm not paying a lawyer for you to change one line of a contract. Why are you making such a big deal out of something like this? Just count the stuff." Now, as previously said, my boss has been doing this job for over 40 years, and he'd already walked in pretty annoyed by buyer. And buyer has now been screwing around with the sales agreement for months, forcing my boss to do a week's worth of planning in one night. And now, not only did he want to completely ignore all the work my boss has put in, but buyer also did it with a rude amount of snark and attitude while my boss was trying to make sure buyer didn't end up paying for junk. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. My boss gives buyer his huge customer service smile which has always scaredly reminded me of the Grinch, and says, "All right then, you want us to count everything? We'll count everything." And then he comes back to our crew and announced, "Everyone, choose a section. We're counting everything." Broken piece? Counted. A piece with a handwritten or ripped up part number? Counted. A kit with pieces missing? Counted. Pieces so old that they've become obsolete? Counted. We counted each and every piece in the business, no matter what condition of the part. A couple months later, one of the crew asked my boss about what happened, and he burst out laughing. The buyer finally figured out, after about a month of nonsense and hearing his employees gripe, that about 30% of the inventory he'd bought was simply garbage, for a total of approximately $500,000 USD. My boss lost him as a client. He regrets absolutely nothing. TLDR, my boss is contracted to do an inventory of good inventory that meets certain conditions. Client decides that he wants everything counted instead, after causing the boss enormous frustration. So the boss has us count every part, no matter its condition. Client ends up paying almost $500,000 more than he should. Magnificent mortuary malicious compliance. Many moons ago, I started in the funeral directing trade as an apprentice/intern in the town I grew up in. It was a pretty sweet gig, all things considered. I got a free house, free Wi-Fi, utilities, the works. I worked for an elderly couple, whom we'll call B and BW respectively, who, more or less, gave me a free run of the place after hours and on weekends, which will be important later on in our story. Our sublime tale begins on a hot summer night in the South like any other. I was out washing/vacuuming the hearse when my boss, B, calls me on the work phone. B: "Hey OP, can you come down to the prep room please?" Me: "You got it, boss." I quickly made my way down to the prep room and met B in the hallway. B: "Wait, before you come in here with me, B warned me that this one was complicated." A quick side note. In the funeral business, we don't like complicated. The dead are hardly ever a handful, so 9 out of 10 times when a case is complicated, it is usually family connected. So we walk into the room to greet an elderly woman, who we'll call W, standing with her dearly departed husband, DP. I am about to express my condolences when W talks over me. W: "I have waited with that hag upstairs for 20 minutes. Where have you been?" Me: "I'm sorry, ma'am. W: "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to him," pointing at DP. Me: "Ma'am, W: "Apologize." Exasperated after being outside and 110% done with this woman already, I walk over to DP and say the following. Me: "I'm sorry to keep you waiting, DP. Would you like something to drink?" DP: Me: "Would you like a paper?" DP: Me: "Oh, the strong silent type. I dig it." B excuses us and walks outside into the hallway. I'm about to apologize when B stops me. B: "Don't worry about it. It was pretty amusing. Just go see if BW needs something." Not as extravagant as a lot of other stories on here, but it just stuck out to me for some reason. Alright guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today. How do you like this new format? Do you like more stories but no bonus? Or a bonus and fewer stories? Let me know, there's gonna be a poll on this video. Anyways, it's gonna wrap it up for today. If you liked it, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.